I have a more global question for you because, yeah, according to you, how we can unleash our own potential?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind to
Yeah.
unleash your own potential is to be educated, uh, be in a constant learning posture, whether it's formally through school or whether it's informally through reading. I think that's absolutely crucial. Uh, Many people just don't read enough. I've seen statistics where, I don't even know how accurate the statistics are, but, the average adult reads maybe one book a year. No, that's not good. That's not how to constantly improve yourself and bring out the best in you.
Mm.
I really thought that one of the things my mother said, to go the extra inch, to look at the various aspects of your life, physical, spiritual, mental, social. Look for one thing you can do each and every day to improve yourself in each of those areas. So my mother would say, do one extra push-up or sit-up, or walk, one extra minute each day. That's physical. Mental, learn one new word a day. Read one more page in a book a day. Just something that would take a minute. Spiritual or social, I don't know where I'd put this. Give one more verbal compliment to people a day. Look for one way each day to help somebody. That would be more on the spiritual side, as opposed to religious. Spiritual, being a good person. What goes around comes around, that whole mentality. But from my perspective, I've always been one to be in a state of constant self-improvement. I'm never satisfied with where I am. Always believe that I can get a little bit better, today than I was yesterday. Always looking for ways to get better. Now, not everybody has that mindset. So I said that there's two ways. One is formal education. So I obviously went all the way through, got a PhD. So there was the formal education. I do a lot of reading, and I read both business-related material and novels. So it's a breadth of knowledge that I'm trying to build, not necessarily a depth of knowledge, to be an expert only in one area and an idiot in all the rest of the areas, but trying to become, as best I could, I'm not sure I'll ever reach it, but to be like a Renaissance person, to have a decent knowledge about a lot of topics so that I can talk to people, or at least show interest in talking to people. So the third area, formal education, reading, talking to people. I'm on the phone hours every single day talking to all kinds of people, particularly my friends. Many of the people that you're interviewing, I'm on the phone with them. Or I'm in email back and forth. This morning with Shep Hyken, who is a big guru on moments of magic. Brian Tracy, yesterday we were chatting. We went out to dinner last week. I'm constantly talking to these people and picking their brain. What are they doing? What have you done differently this month than you did last month? What have you
Wow.
learned? What have you learned new that's working for you since the last time we talked? Things like that.
Great questions. I love
Yeah,
that.
so I talk
I will
a lot.
remember your questions.
So, those kinds of things. I'm always looking for ways to get better at what I do.
So what did you learn from in this year?
So you're asking me. Well, the big thing that I'm moving toward is the digital world. So
I can
everything.
help you for that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because of your age and my age, right? But I'm pretty tech savvy. I have a couple of tech businesses that I run. But believe me, I can learn from people like you. But digitizing everything, every one of my books or written works are in digital format, whether it's a PDF or an ebook. Every one of my audios, from the time it was on a cassette tape. Now, it doesn't go back to the 8 tracks. Do you know what the 8 track is, where you plug it
Yeah,
in?
I see.
Those big ones. No, but I've taken the, every audio tape that I've had, and even CDs, and I've moved it all into MP3 or a digital audio format. I've taken almost all of my video, that some of it was on Betamax, VHS, the big, more formal, business-oriented tape formats, Sony Betacams, whatever, and I've moved most of it over into MPEG-4 and onto clips onto YouTube. You see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Then what I do is I'm looking now, I have all this content, a lot of content. In fact, if you talk to people who know me, there are a few people, Brian Tracy being one of them, but few people who have more content published than me. But now what I do is I take all this content and I look for where can I publish it to create passive revenue flows. So for audio, where do I go? Do I go to Amazon? Do I go to Apple and their iTunes? Do I go to audible.com for print or ebooks? And an ebook, let me tell you about an ebook. I took one of my actual books called Communicating at Work, and I turned that whole book into an ebook. It's like maybe 300 pages, and people started complaining because they tried to print it out on their printer and it was 300 pages. It ate up their whole, all the ink. And I looked at the book and I said, wow, every chapter is a different topic. And I made 24 ebooks, smaller ones, with specific topics that were the chapter titles. And I sell those
the same price.
The same price, but now I have 24 of them. So I look for publishers for that. And again, you have Amazon, you have Apple, you have Books 24/7, et cetera, different publishers of print material. And then, of course, with video, you look for people who publish video, Total Training Network, seminars on DVD. You look for people who are specifically in that domain. But the whole thing I'm focusing on this year is to maximize my digital intellectual property, to create ongoing passive flows of revenue. And what you're doing here with these interviews, you'll be able to do the same, because you can turn these into white papers, or mini ebooks. You can turn it into audio and video. So you have all three with what you're doing. But that's content is king. Content is king. So that's really what I am doing. If you look at the speaking business, and I don't know how many people have told you this in your interviews, but the speaking business since 2008 has been decimated. I mean, it has been gutted. Seriously. I know speakers who back in the late 90s were earning over $1 million a year in speaking, who in the last year or two have claimed bankruptcy, because the pie, the speaking pie, let's say the speaking pie back in the late 90s was this big, okay? Just hypothetically, this big. Then after 9/11, when there was a big fear of travel, et cetera, and a lot of companies pulled back from having meetings and learned that they can do some of it online, but that was back in 2002 and 2003. Wasn't as sophisticated. So the pie shrunk a little after 9/11, but it still was big. But this last recession, where so many companies pulled back, of course, here in the United States, we call it the Great Recession.
Yeah,
the Great Recession. But when companies pulled back after 2008, they found that the whole meeting world online was much more sophisticated, much better than it was even back in the early 2000s. So they decided to switch a lot of their meetings into that remote digital format, virtual training, virtual meetings, Skype, you name it. I mean, we have all these options now. Google, what do they call it? Not Google Plus, it's Google Hangouts. There's so many options now to have meetings without pulling people together. So now the pie went like this, and people who solely relied on speaking for their income have been killed. I mean, really, really, really hurting. Now, back in 1999, and I remember this vividly because you'll see why. In 1999, I did 99. In 99, I did 99 full paid speeches. And when 2000 came around, first we had that little scare, Y2K. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Y2K, actually, you were just a little kid then. But you remember they were talking about, what was going to happen to the computers,
Yeah.
the computers turning over. Of course, none of that happened. But I started saying to myself, I can't do 100 speeches a year like I had been doing since the early 80s. Every year, 100 or more speeches a year. It was crazy, and traveling all over the country and the world. And I said in 2000, I said to my wife, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do it to the extent that I'm doing it. And so what I want to do is put so much more emphasis on alternative sources of revenue using my intellectual property. So in 2000, what I did is I took my entire staff and I spun them off into their own business, which now is a very profitable business. I didn't keep any ownership of it. The key employees, I said, look, for the next 5 years, if you hit these goals, I'm going to give you each year 20% of the business for free. For 5 years, they hit the goals. Now it's their business. But what it did is it took all of my fixed overhead, the salaries, the office rent, etc., and it made it a variable cost, because all I did is I paid them percentages then on speeches and product sales. I then took my revenue and started looking for other ways to invest that revenue into my intellectual property. And I created a big online assessment business called Assessments 24/7, which today, brings in a lot more than speaking brings in. And then I started looking for ways to digitize all my products, everything, and then start looking for the publishers, just like we were chatting about a few minutes ago, to start carrying my product, marketing it, and paying me royalties. So it's now, this year, after so many years of focusing on that, where I don't have to give a single speech and I don't have to worry about anything financially, because it all comes in through these other sources. When I speak, it's, as we call it, gravy. It's just extra. So, that's really what I have been doing since 2000. But this year in particular, back to your question, what am I doing this year? I'm becoming more aggressive, more focused in identifying more and more publishers for those 3 different kinds of products: print, audio, and video.
Great. And so what we have to remember of what you are saying is you focus not only on the short term but also in the long term to
Absolutely.
build something in the long term that will help you more.
Right.
Right?